In this video, we will begin our discussion on Byzantine notation. We will start learning how to read some of the characters used in Byzantine music. And I'll begin by introducing characters of quantity, which I'll explain in a moment. Now, if you're familiar with the way Western music or staff notation appears on a sheet of music, I'd like to preface by saying that Byzantine music is read quite differently than this, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. All right, so what are Byzantine characters? They are the symbols that are used to write out the melody of a hymn and can be split into three different categories. Okay, first we have characters of quantity. These symbols tell the chanter how many notes to ascend or descend with respect to the previous note they were on. And this is precisely how Byzantine music is read. You're given a starting note at the beginning of the hymn or musical phrase, and the music builds off of this starting note. Each of the characters of quantity have a value associated with them, if you will. Some instruct you to ascend one note, some to ascend 2 notes, 3 notes, and so on. And there are some that instruct you to descend a number of notes. Again, this ascent or descent is based on the previous note within the music. I like to think of reading Byzantine music as being analogous to a giant math problem or a series of additions and subtractions of varying quantities of notes that in effect produce a melody line. I mean, who doesn't love math, right? This will make a bit more sense as we dive into some exercises later on. So when we say quantity, we are referring to the upward and downward movement on the musical scale and how many notes we are descending and descending respectively. So second, we have characters of timing. Now, these symbols appear alongside the characters of quantity in the music to tell the chanter how many beats to hold the note. And finally, there are characters of quality. These symbols appear in the music to tell the chanter how to chant something using dynamics, embellishments, etc. So before we continue, before we dive into learning our first characters of quantity and our first exercises, I want to introduce you to martyries, which are these symbols here to the right. So here are the martyries. Now, these are the symbols that represent each of the notes of the musical scale. See, ni, pa, vu, ra, vi, ke, zo, ni, right? And those are the Greek letters. They are found at the beginning and end of a hymn, as well as the beginnings and ends of musical phrases within the hymn. So these symbols in their entirety, the letters and these symbols underneath. They are used as markers to tell the chanter which note he should start or end a hymn or phrase of music. The symbols beneath the Greek letters of the martyries tell you what key, or more appropriately, what scale you're in. So are you in the diatonic, chromatic, or enharmonic scale? These, as it so happens, are the martyries that will display under the notes when you're in the diatonic scale. So we'll be seeing these a little more often right at the start. So these little accent marks here on these last two martyries, these indicate that we are now entering the upper octave of the scale. So see, here's low ni, and then here's high ni. And it has that little accent mark there. And this I included here to display what a martyria will look like when it's in the lower octave. So the letter will actually appear beneath the symbol of the martyria. So again, these can be thought of as markers. And you'll see when we start going into some exercises of how they're actually used in practice. So let's begin discussing characters of quantity. Now, the first character we're going to discuss is called dison. It has a value of 0. So that means you neither ascend nor descend from the previous note you were chanting. You, in effect, repeat the same note that you were previously on. And this is what the ison symbol looks like in the music, kind of like a sideways cane. Our next notes Here they are. Here we have characters that instruct you to ascend or descend one note from the previous note. So on top here, we have 3 different characters that each instruct the chanter to ascend one note from the previous note. So each of these characters will tell you to go up 1. On the other hand, this one down here on the bottom, this character instructs the chanter to descend one note from the one they were just chanting. So now each of these characters do have names. I don't believe that it's important to memorize the names of each of the symbols. And here they are. But you should definitely memorize what they do within the music. Right? So the oligon is a +1. Kedimata is +1. Petasti is +1. And the apostrophos is -1. So why don't we try a few exercises now that we know some notation? And this is Byzantine music, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it looks like. So this is how you would read it. And again, we are going to be doing these exercises utilizing a method known as paralayi, in which we will be reciting the notes as we hit them on the page here. So, starting with this, we have the martiria that tells us to start at the note ni. Now, Byzantine music, you have to match in practice in the church, you have to match the pitch of the priest. But for our purposes here, we'll just give an arbitrary ni to begin with. So this exercise would be conducted in this manner. Ni pa vu ga vi ke zo ni zo ke vi ga vu pa ni. And that is how paralayi is done. You recite the names of the notes or chant the names of the notes as you hit them. Ni pa vu ga vi ke zo ni zo ke vi ga vu pa ni. And you can try exercise 1 here on your own if you like. Why don't we give exercise 2 a shot? There's a little bit more difference in the succession of notes here. We'll start with ni. Ni pa vu ga vi. So you stay on the ni here because of the ison marking. And the oligon tells you to go up 1 to the next note in the scale, which is pa. And this, again, an ison telling you to stay on the note you were previously on, which is pa. And the oligon here tells you to go up 1 from pa to vu. And this is how Byzantine music is read. Ni pa vu ga vi. Here's a little bit more practice with some of the notation we just learned. Ni pa vu ga vi ga vu pa ni. The apostrophos here is telling us to go down 1 note from the previous note that we were on. So up here, as indicated here, that we were on V, although normally this wouldn't be written under here. You'd have to know that you were on V based on this previous progression. Well, if we're on V here and we see this note coming up, what's the note we're supposed to go to? We go down 1 to Ra, which is the note just below the in the Byzantine scale. Let's try exercise 4. Ni, ni, pa, pa, vu, vu, ga, ga, vi, ke, zo, ni, ni, zo, ke, vi, ga, vu, pa, ni. Now we're going to throw the kendimata in, which is another symbol we just learned. It also means +1, similarly to the oligon, which apparently does not show up on this page, which is the straight line. But there are differences. People may ask, why do they have 3 different symbols that tell you to go up 1 note? It's not important to know right now, but there are textural differences in the way you ascend. So with the kedimata, it's more of a slide up in practice. Ni, pa, vu, ga. It's more of a slide up. The oligon is more of just a standard ascent. And the petasti, which we haven't seen yet in one of our exercises, is +1, but it is always followed by a note that descends. So this is the distinction between the 3 +1s. For our purposes right now, you can just think of it as +1. And you can apply these textural and theoretical nuances later down the road. Let's try exercise 5. Ni, pa, vu, ga, di, ke, zo, ni, zo, ke, vi, ga, vu, pa, ni. Now this exercise doesn't have the notes labeled, so we have to know what note we are on, and this will be excellent practice for us to do so. So I'm going to go through this, and we're going to do the paralayi, and there are not going to be any notes underneath for you to read. So you're going to have to know where you are on the scale and what's coming next. Ni, pa, vu, ga, vu, pa, vu, ga, ke, ga, vu, ga, ke, zo, ga, ke, zo, ni, zo, ke, ga, ke, zo, ke, ga, vu, ga, ke, ga, vu, pa, vu, ga, ga, vu, pa, ni, pa, vu, ga, vu, pa, ni, zo, ni, pa, ni. Bravo. Why don't we try one more exercise for this lesson? I'm going to do this one without the laser pointer. Let's see if you can follow along without me pointing to the notes. Ni pa pa vu ga ga vi ke zo ni zo ke vi ga ga vu pa